Hi, and welcome to Blueprint's monthly education series for April. Today we're going to be talking about variable income confusion. My name is Mike Whitbeck, one of the co-founders here at Blueprint, and excited to share this topic with you. So for April, we get this email all the time in the box where somebody sends in an employed borrower through the Plus system, and they come back and say, how come there was no overtime, tips, or bonus used? And it's because there's confusion what the guidelines say to do and what we have to follow. So I'm going to show you what guidelines do cause this confusion using Fannie Mae today as an example. Now, this is the same confusion created in the Freddie Mac guidelines and not so much FHA and the government ones. That what they do talk a little bit vague. So I'm hoping this explanation will help out a little bit. We need to talk about what are the requirements for variable income and what documents are required to support the variable income, which does conflict with reading the guidelines, but there's always you have to read further to figure it all out. So before we get started, just reminder, if you need a tool to take the guesswork out of income calculations, we built Blueprint Income Expert. You can check it out at getblueprint.io or email us at info@getblueprint.io. We're fast, compliant, meet all agency rules for all income types, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA. Whether you got K1 income, royalty trust, overtime, 24 rentals, 3 Schedule Cs, IncomeXpert can handle it all for you. All right, guidelines that cause confusion. The various income types have conflicting information documentation, specifically about documentation, which leads to the confusion. Now, what I'm talking about is the overtime bonus tips commission specifically. In other words, variable income types for employed borrowers. So if you go into the guidelines and you got a borrower and you're like, hey, you want to maximize your approval, you go into your guidelines, you read Fannie Mae B33.501, and you look to see what documentation you need to ask your borrower for. You're doing your job, right? You're following the rules. And it says right here, you can get a 1005 or the most recent pay stub and W-2s for the most recent 2 years. Okay, that's what I'm going to get. Or at the borrower head commission, same example, most recent pay stub and 2 years W-2s. Or tips, most recent pay stub, 2 years W-2s. But this is where the problem is, okay? When you read the guidelines, you're like, all right, I'm going to go to my borrower and get that pay stub and W-2. I'm going to turn to my underwriter, and they're going to be able to figure everything out and maximize my borrower's income. But they won't be able to. So here's why. When you read further in the guidelines and you look up, what do I need to do when I have variable income types? Well, let's go through the rules. A minimum of 2-year history of employment income is recommended. If you have less, you may consider it, as long as the borrower's employment demonstrates stability, right? So if I have less than 2 years, so 0 to 2 years, I can use it, right? Well, not 0 to 2 years, but borrowers relying on overtime or bonus income must have a minimum of 12 months. So again, we're not talking about base pay here. So if you have somebody between 12 and 24, it's fine. But less than 12 months, it's absolutely a no to use bonus or overtime with less than 12-month history of receiving this type of income with stability. So now if I get that pay stub and W-2 from my borrower, which I've put an example of here, and your borrower hands you their May 12 pay stub, you can clearly see they're getting overtime and base pay and some kind of extra money called defined contract or something for a couple $100 for the year. You turn this in your underwriter going, all right, look, look at all that overtime, man, that's going to give them a good qualification. And I got the previous year's W-2, 59 grand. Okay, looks like they're making money consistently here. I'm going to turn it in. We're going to be good. But there's a lot of problems here. So I look at the pay stub. I'm going to start doing my math and go, all right, I got 10,912 in base pay, 2.38 months. That's 458509. I look at the overtime. Wow, that's really good. 2.38 months. That's 9414. But remember, I have to show a minimum history of 12 months for the overtime. Right now, I've only got 2.38 months, very much short of the 12-month requirement. Well, let me break out my W-2 to get that other 12 months, right? Or that extra time. So a W-2 covers a 12-month period. I got 2.38, so 12 plus 2.38, 14.3. Good, I'm good to go. Let's start breaking it down. I got 59,815 divided by 12. Whoa, wait a minute. 49.84 per month. That's far less than the 45.85 plus the overtime with 94.14. Way less. Matter of fact, it barely covers the base. So there's a couple big problems here. First of all, I can't look at this 59,850 and have any idea of what the overtime is there. And now I can clearly see I don't even know what the start date is. Now, in this particular file, we know that they started later in the year, so this is why I use this one as an example today. Because there's actually another W-2 in the file, and we have a start date for the other one and an end date, which was actually like July or August, I believe it was. So you can see W-2s have very little information you need to use these variable incomes. Now, kick in problem number 2, which is actually what the problem is in general. I'm going back to Fannie Mae guidelines, and I'm like, hey, how do I figure out variable income? And it says right here, all income that's calculated by averaging must be reviewed to assess the borrower's history of receipt, frequency of the payment, and trending of the income amount being received. So I have to check for, history of receipt, the frequency of payment, right? So I got to see that you have overtime, not just any pay, but overtime, not just bonus or any pay, but bonus, right? So whatever you're going after, you have to show the history of each type. Then, and again, they're kind of pointing out that we're really specifically talking about commissions, bonuses, or overtime here. But when you read the trending analysis that says you have to complete up here in the higher paragraph, it says after you calculate the year to date, okay, we got a pay stub, that's no big deal. It must be compared to the prior year's earnings using the borrower's W-2. This is where, again, it's a bit misleading. How do I look at that W-2 and break out overtime versus base, which you can't? Because after I do that, and I don't have the information to do it, I have to look at stable with decline, or decline with stable now, or declining. And this is the exact rules you have to follow and how you have to do your averaging. So we got all these problems. We really have no idea what the overtime is. We don't, we have no idea when they even started the job in 2021 because what is a W-2. We can't confirm the 12 months. We can't do our trending data because we don't have the data we need. So even though the guideline said this is okay, you can see it's not okay. You don't have the right amount of information. Now, how does, Fannie and Freddie kind of get away with this, right? Well, if you read further in the guidelines, they tell you this. Hey, DU indicates the minimum income documentation. It says this level of documentation may not be adequate for every borrowing situation. And you got to go here and you have to determine the stability. So they're like, yeah, I know that's what the DU finding said, but if you want to use overtime, tips, commission, you got to follow all the trending analysis rules. You probably need to get a VOE or VOI, right? So the guidelines, again, are kind of one of these things like you have to read through all the sections. Now, unfortunately, when you look at DU or LP, it's just giving you a snapshot of a particular guideline, not about the background to how to apply that guideline. And that's what we're going over today. So bottom line is, if you want to use variable income, your tips, commission, bonus, or other income that are on top of base pay, I would highly recommend you get a VOE, verification employment, VOI, verification income, which are virtually identical, VOE, VOI, or year-end pay stubs, YEPs, year-end pay stubs. Because year-end pay stubs have the same information that any VOE or VOI does. They confirm required history, and they break out the income types that we need. So if you look at this example versus the W-2 and pay stub, so this is current as a 317, it was acquired on 330, it's a VOI, verification of income, and it's from Chart Industries. This person has been there since 5/3/21. They make $22.50 an hour, and down below I can see the base salary, overtime, and bonus all broken out to give me my grand totals for the year. All right, that's what you need to do your proper income analysis. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like in Blueprint so you can see how Blueprint can quickly get you the right income without making a big mistake, which I'm going to show you a couple that probably happen. Okay, I flipped to Blueprint IncomeXpert. I got a file set up for this borrower. So my example borrower here is example document borrower is what I named them. We're going to have a pay stub only and a VOE. I go to my income tab. I open up my pay stub. Now, as you can see, when you choose you only have pay stubs, IncomeXpert's not letting you even try to determine overtime, tips, commission, bonus, right? Because we know you don't have the information. So I plug in your hourly rate from the pay stub, which was $48.50, put the hourly rate. I assume they're working full time. This was dated 18 March. Their start date was actually 1 September. So remember that W-2 was definitely not a full year. It was dated 1 September when they started. And even when you put that information in, all their tips and overtime is $34,000, which is $13,291. But their base pay of that 34 was only $10,912, which doesn't even support the calculated income of $8406. So IncomeXpert's like, yeah, you can't use that, right? It's a zero, all right? So the borrower, like we put in our advisories here, you may have additional income there, but first of all, you got to get a VOE or VOI to collaborate that, and it's not even supporting in the base pay. Their base pay is only equaling 42.29, not 84.06 like it's supposed to, right? So we have to always be cognizant, not just lumping a bunch of income together. But what if we have a VOE? All right, let's take a look. Now that I'm asking and I've got a VOE, VOI, or year-end pay stubs, my YEPs, right? There's another example, that VOE on that screen I just showed you, that VOI I mean, 2250 hourly rate, 17 March was the date period. They started in May of 2021. I typed in the base pay, and I have a nice stable 7.2%. Green arrow means stable or increasing. But even though I had a VOE, it's not really well supported. It's going down. Like it went 1300 to 3198, but it's only 2497. That's a 22% drop, or a 21.9% drop. The guidelines require it to be stable to use it. So if you just kind of lumped all the income together and guesstimated the overtime at, I don't know what, 2497 or 3198, or down here 3076, it's not stable. So you can see IncomeXpert does all the trending it's supposed to. There's your base pay. There's your overtime we recommend you use. Because it's declining, we would not recommend you use it. So we're keeping you in the clear in this really, this is not the time, 2023 is not the time to be super aggressive in income. Now let's just say the borrower tells you like, hey, we don't get much overtime in the winter, but maybe in the summer I get a lot more. Well, you might have to wait a few weeks to get a few more pay periods to get this trending analysis to not be so harsh at 21%. But see here, at least what we can do, we have the proper information to make an informed risk decision, not just lumping together things and throwing W-2 together, because it will not meet the guidelines that are laid out there. Okay, that wraps up our quick underwriting monthly education series and talk about the confusion you get with income analysis. So hopefully showing you this key thing, you'll get the right documentation from your borrower. You can come use our tool, IncomeXpert. Check it out at the website, getblueprint.io. And we look forward to seeing you next month, or talking to you next month, on the Underwriting Monthly Education Series. My name is Mike Whitbeck, co-founder of Blueprint, 29-year underwriter in the mortgage business, and I hope this information was helpful. Looking forward to talking to you again.